Jan Moody, and I'm part of the marketing team here at Edulastic. I'm here with Shemena, and she is being featured as part of our Edulastic Innovator Spotlight series. We're featuring really tech-savvy and great teachers, and we're really excited to have her with us today. So can you just start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Shemena Shivers. I'm originally from Los Angeles, born and raised there, but I'm currently living in Tennessee. I am a 10th grade biology teacher in Memphis, and I love my students. I'm teaching the same students that I taught last year, so they were 9th graders and now they're 10th graders. And so Edulastic has kind of become part of my weekly or bi-weekly routine, and it's kind of changed the way in which I teach and how I assess my kids. So super excited to be here.
Awesome. 10th grade biology, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
What inspired you to work in education?
I had really great teachers growing up, and I think a lot of people say that, like, oh, I had great teachers, but I never ever wanted to be a teacher. I never wanted to work in education. As a science major, I wanted to go discover brand new species. Like, that was my goal in life. And so I kind of stumbled into a job where I was working as a teacher's assistant in a high school back in Arizona, and I just kind of fell in love with it. I was still in school. I was just working my way through college, and I realized that I liked kids a lot more than I thought I did. And I was able to reach them. I was able to teach them. And it seemed like something that I could do for a really long time. So I switched my major, added education, and that was 5 years ago. And so I'm still here. Now I'm working on my doctorate in education. So
Wow.
I fully committed to this thing. Yeah.
That's great. That's really awesome. And how did you learn about Edulastic?
I was Googling questions for a test. So last year was my first year in a classroom on my own. And so I was teaching an environmental science class, and I was also teaching biology, and I didn't have a question bank. So I was teaching students content, but I wasn't really sure how to ask them questions based off of like standardized testing. So I just started Googling things, and Edulastic popped up. And I had been using a few different techniques trying to find question banks for my content. And when I found Edulastic, I immediately fell in love with it just because there was an array of different questions. The standards that my state was using were there. And so I didn't have to see if they were aligned. I saw that they were the exact same standards. There was a lot of questions, or a lot of different types of questioning, and it allowed me to assess my students in non-traditional ways. So I made like a very short quiz the first time. The kids said, "This was great. Can we try it again?" And the following week I tried it again. They loved it again. And so as the year went on, I just continued to use Edulastic. But it was really just by accident, just looking through Google. So Google is great.
That's
Find everything you need there.
Yeah, that's really, really great. Thank you for sharing. So how often are you using Edulastic in your classroom?
So this school year, because I'm teaching the same students, they're fairly aware of like how I teach. So last year we did weekly quizzes. This year we're just going to do bi-weekly assessment. So I want to give my students a little bit more time to sit with the material. I think the difference between that is that the examinations that they'll have will be a little bit longer in length. And so I'll use more complex questions, or I'll have them do like a variety of questions in a test. So this year it'll be bi-weekly versus last year when it was weekly.
Cool. You took my next question right from me. I was going to ask you what kind of question types you like to use.
My favorite, I love them all, but I really love when I can show my students a lesson. For example, right now we just started working on cells, and so they'll have the regular multiple choice, but I'm also going to have like a matching. So they'll have a cell organelle, and then they'll have the function. So they'll have to pair the correct cell organelle with the function. Then they'll also have to write like a short response. So I'll give them a cell organelle dysfunction, and they'll have to tell me which part of the cell wasn't working properly. I also like doing of course I don't know the names, but the ones where like they have to order things correctly. I love that, because oftentimes in science, most of the information doesn't change, but there are certain things that have steps. So last year we talked about succession and how we start with rocks and sand and how it develops into a forest over time. So my students had to know the correct order in which succession occurred. So I just jumble up the succession steps, and then their question is put these in the correct order from beginning to end, or I flip them from end to beginning. And so it allows the students to kind of move it as if it's a puzzle piece versus just being forced to recall information. And so I think because I teach it in a way where they're learning steps, then they're able to show me and demonstrate that they understand it in steps versus just rote memorization.
Very cool. That seems like the type of question that would be really difficult to give on a piece of paper too. So then to be able to do it online, that's awesome through Edulastic. So I really loved your teaching philosophy that you wrote when I sent you some initial questions. You said that all students bring talents and gifts into the classroom. It is our job as educators to pull them out and teach students how they can apply these to become the most successful version of themselves. Will you tell me a little bit about this? I just think it's a really great philosophy to go by.
Yeah, I think that sometimes in education, we neglect students who don't understand or don't learn in the traditional way in which we teach. And I think that it kind of puts students in a box. I think it puts educators in a box as well. And I don't like to be put in a box. I find myself to be someone who can learn in a variety of styles. And I think that my students are like that as well. The difference being I was taught that there were different ways of learning. And so I'm able to kind of move as necessary. So I can learn from a teacher who just lectures, but I can also learn from a teacher who takes us outside to learn, who makes us do hands-on things. And so I want my students to understand that they're capable of learning. They just have to figure out what their style is. And I think that my job as the educator is to provide my students with multiple ways to demonstrate their learning. And once I figure that out, then kind of helping them to understand this is how I learn best. This is how I, struggle. And so they're able to be more autonomous in their own learning environment. So for me, I know that they come with a gift. I know that they have talents. I know that they have abilities. My job is to kind of sift through the dirt and pull those diamonds out of the rough and allow them to shine in the way that's unique for them.
That's amazing. I'm sure. Sounds like you have an amazing classroom, and I bet your students are so lucky to be in your class. Do you have any tips for teachers who are new to Edulastic so that they can get started and dive in just like you have?
Yeah, I think just take some time with it. So I'm still learning a lot about Edulastic. This week I'm setting up for this school year. So we kind of took the first month to kind of get used to school. And so now I'm getting ready to start our first Edulastic examination on Friday. So they're prepared for that. But I would say for anyone who's new, just to kind of take time with it. So you don't have to jump in and make a 50 question test, but test it out as like an exit ticket or try 5 or 6 questions. When I first started, I just used 1 or 2 types of questioning. I didn't want to overwhelm myself. I didn't want to say I was going to make this multi-dimensional exam and then I only have 2 parts. So I focused on, 1 or 2 question types, and that's how I taught my students. And that way, when they saw the quiz or the test at the end of the unit, the way in which I taught them matched how I tested them. And then once you master those 1 or 2, then try another 2. And then maybe by the end of a semester, then you have an arsenal of 5 or 6 different test types that you can give to your kids. And then you can see what works best for which students, which areas they grow, which areas they kind of struggle in, and then adjust as necessary. I think for me, the best part of Edulastic is being able to see the data in the moment. So when I give my students quizzes, I can see which parts of the questions they're getting wrong or which types of questions they're getting wrong. And then I can correct it in the moment, or I can use that data to make the next quiz better in those areas. So if a student was struggling with the writing portion, then maybe the next time I might make it shorter. Or if they're struggling in ordering, instead of giving them 8 things to order, I only give them 4. And so just picking 1 or 2 things at a time, trying those out, becoming really good at those, and then adding more as you go will be my best advice for a new person trying out Edulastic.
It seems like really great advice. Thank you for sharing. And then lastly, what are you most excited for this school year?
Oh man, I'm excited for these reports. So I get to see the same students from last year. And so I get to kind of track their growth over 2 years. So I'm excited to see where we started the foundation in an environmental science class and see how they've grown and progressed through biology, which I'm super excited. I have a few new students, but the majority of my kids are the same. So I'm excited to try a few more question types. I'm also excited to see how well they retain their information from last year and how easily they transition back into the flow of Edulastic testing, because we had to do a couple paper tests and they hated it. So I'm excited for them to be excited when they see we're pulling the computers out to take our Edulastic tests.
Great. That's amazing. Well, I wish you all the best this school year. It seems like you're so passionate about education. I always love talking to teachers like you and love hearing your story. So thank you for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.